I was gonna sing a song first. It's called "With a Trump, Trump here and a Trump, Trump there. Here a Trump, there a Trump, everywhere a Trump, Trump. Old MacDonald had a farm. E-I-E-I-O." Okay, moving on. So we're going to talk about day 5. We made it to the 5th day. Yeah. Oh, man. Okay, so we're talking about press operator maintenance. Operator maintenance or press maintenance. And I tried making this before and it was like 2 hours plus over 2 hours long. I'm like, I gotta speed it up somehow. So we're gonna try to get through all this. If I can't do it, then I may have to break it up into 2 videos. Image quality goes hand in hand with press maintenance. So you could have a separate video talking about image quality by itself. You can't have good image quality without good maintenance. If you don't know what you're doing, if you're slacking, neglecting, half-assing, then it'll show up. It'll show up on the printed product. And it'll actually be harder to maintain later. You know, it'll take more effort to get it to clean up back to an ideal state. So first of all, I'm just going to talk about environment one more time. Environment is everything when it comes to the print. In any machinery environment, but printing especially, because both the press and the paper that you're going to be using is susceptible to the environment. So high humidity or low humidity is bad, right? You don't want it too high, you don't want it too low, you want it in the middle, right? They say it depends on who you ask, but I've heard 20 degrees up to like 60, 65, maybe 70 degrees is acceptable. Below that or above that is extreme. You know, now you're going to have problems. So it depends. But on the PSIP, you can click on System Press Environment Monitor, I believe. Somewhere it's called Press Environment Monitor. And it'll just pull up a browser page with the temperature and relative humidity of the press. That it'll also be color coded, so green is good. Green means you're in range, you're in spec. If you are yellow, then it's on the borderline, it's drifting out of range. And red is out of range, bad, right? So you want these things to be within range. The press itself has its own environmental control system, but it is susceptible to the building where the press is being held. So if your building doesn't have climate control in it at all, then your building is susceptible to the climate outside. You know, what's the weather today, right? Is it really dry? Like here it's been cold and dry for a long time. My skin's drying out, right? I'm susceptible to the environment, but so is the press, so is the paper. So keeping that relative humidity within range makes a huge difference. A huge difference. So if you're in the print business, it is strongly, strongly, strongly recommended that you have climate controlled facility. Obviously, you're trying to save money. You might, get a building that doesn't have that, and you don't want to shell out the extra money. I understand, but it will make your life a lot easier. And I mean a lot easier if you have climate control. So, okay, so you can use a press environment monitor to keep an eye on it. It'll just tell you green is good, right? Red is bad. So if you're outside of spec, if you're in the red, you want to say, well, is there something wrong with your environmental control system of the press? Is there something going on? Or you say, well, am I in a non-climate control facility and the environment is affecting the press? If that's the case, then you have to work with what you got, and you can still run the press, but you will have problems, potentially jamming. You'll have more jamming under low humidity. You'll have more jams. You'll have static buildup in the press, which is bad for a lot of things. Jamming. It can affect image quality. It can affect stacking. And the other thing would be transfer. Thank you. Transfer. So you will have transfer problems because the paper itself is it's starting to dry out. It's brittle. It doesn't flex nicely. The machine prefers the stock to have some play to it, some flex to it as it travels throughout the press. And you can have transfer problems. Or you could have jams, right? If your stock doesn't flex, there are certain areas where it's going to have trouble. Coming out of transfer is potentially a problem. Area 5B, where it goes in the inverter gate, and it might have trouble getting that bend because the paper is just so inflexible, and it's it's not good. So you can have more jams and stuff, and all of that is downtime. If you're constantly fighting with the paper, you're constantly fighting with environment. It's all solvable with climate control facility. The other thing is the transfer problems that occur. You can work around them with adjusting the subsystem attribute transfer settings of the stock. Play with the voltage a little bit to get it, and you can overcome transfer problems by doing that up to a period of time. But sometimes it's just you can't do it. So my experience from my testing, I could survive through 7% relative humidity and higher, but I could not survive at 6% relative humidity. So when it got that bad, when it got that dry, there was no room for compensation without having image quality artifacts. So I learned how to handle the paper differently. It was dry. I learned how to store paper better to make sure it would be as flexible as possible by the time it got to the press. I learned tricks to get it to run tricks to control static. But as far as transfer goes and image quality, 6% relative humidity was the end of the road. 7 was still very difficult. 7 to 10 is all difficult. Every degree you go up, it gets a lot easier. It starts getting okay. What happens is you'll have some sheets that transfer correctly and other sheets will not. You'll have deletions. So it'll be mixed in your final stack, which is really difficult to deal with. So you gotta go through every single sheet and try to find which ones didn't transfer correctly. So that becomes a nightmare. It's a nightmare scenario, but all avoided by humidifiers. All avoided by having a way to keep the press happy. And the press environmental monitor tells you green or red. Simple as that. Okay. So let's move on. Image quality. I'm going to try to plow through this. It's going to be tough. So again, I'm going to talk about every maintenance procedure one by one. Obviously, again, I cannot show you exactly. I can only tell you. If I had an Igen at my place, I would actually show you, but I don't. Right. Okay, so I'm going to so I'm going to let's talk about image quality. So to maintain image quality, the color density is what you're trying to keep calibrated, because what happens is it drifts a little bit over time. IGEN's very good at maintaining the correct color densities for days, right? But when you get into weeks and more, it drifts. And, you know, there's a lot of things that can negatively or can just affect color density. A lot of things, even things you wouldn't normally think. So you're calibrating with color maintenance tool, and that's doing the scanning of CMYK and area 10 inline spectrophotometer, ILS. It's just scanning them, input values, send them to the computer, make proper adjustments, whatever the magic happens, it's happening. The great happening is happening. So that's color maintenance. Before, what is color maintenance comparing? What values does it compare to exactly? The starting point, as I understand, the starting point is DFE profiling, which you can see is an option in color maintenance tool. It'll show you can do engine check, system check, zero graphic setup, I think mob sensor calibration, DFE profiling, TRC linearization, right? TRC linearization. But DFE profiling is also on there. And that is the original profile that the press is basing everything off of. Because you are running color maintenance on a particular stock, the press wants the default settings for this stock. So before you can, when you have first you have an Igen, you install your software and get it going. Now you have to pick a stock, a calibration stock. So you're going to run DFE profiling on that stock. So 80-pound gloss text is the preferred. 100-pound gloss text also is good. Those are the two stocks that Xerox strongly recommends you use for calibration. Now, whatever your calibration paper is going to be, you want it to be DFE profiled with that same stock. And DFE profiling will print the full range of colors. And it'll print a bunch of sheets, 100 or so sheets to the stacker with the full range of colors that the press can handle with CMYK inks. And it scans them as well in Area 10 ILS. So those will be your default values. So before you DFE profile, you want your press to be in a healthy state. You want it to be ideal. You can have new parts in there, but you should probably run a few hundred sheets of test pages before, so it's kind of ideal, average, ideal, happy, medium. You know, it's not fresh new parts and then go, right? You want to give the parts a little time to break in a little bit. Make sure the image quality is ideal, and then you can set up the calibration with DFE profiling. And that's going to be your stock that you use for color maintenance procedures. So it's the engine check, system check, and TRC linearization all use stock to do the scanning. You can do them individually. Or you can hit auto. Auto will run in order of what it needs. And if it needs to do relinearize, if it needs to run TRC linearization again, it will do that. So it does its own checks when it scans. Okay, we're good. We're within range. Or it says no. We have to keep. Let's do this again. You can run auto mode, or you can run. You might be able to skip a step if you do it manually, if you know what you're doing. So making sure that you're using the same paper, and when I say same paper, I mean same paper, because you say, well, 80-pound gloss text, but a different manufacturer, right? It might not be the same exact paper. The brightness level might be different. The gloss coating might be slightly different. It's considered 80-pound gloss text. The GSM is still within the correct range. But, you know, the short grain or long grain might be different. You can either visibly see the difference, or you can feel the difference between one manufacturer's 80-pound gloss text and another manufacturer's 80-pound gloss text. And if ever that is the case, if I have to switch a brand of paper, I'm going to want to go through the DFE profiling process again, right? This is my personal preference. Other people will say, nah, I don't care. But that subtle change in paper is enough to affect your print quality, the print densities. Now, it's not affecting it a lot, but it's a little bit. So, at some point I want to work in, if I have to change papers, the next available, I do a bunch of maintenance. The next time I do maintenance, I'm going to want to bring it back and I'm going to recalibrate with DFE profiling. Otherwise, I don't touch DFE profiling. It's something that you don't, it's not a regular part of your maintenance. It only happens when you have to reload software, or you have a change in your stock, some kind of software bug or a change in your stock, or you have to add a new stock profile, right? Or you're using a different DPI setting. There's 4 different DPI settings you can run, and you have to profile separately. But that's it. So color maintenance goes by the default values, and then it just restores it back to a good range, a close range. It's still drifting. There's still a little bit of drift, or there might be. So, and that is important as an operator, because you may have customers that want an exact color match. And if they want an exact color match, you say, well, they say, well, first you have to figure out, can I print that color, right? CMYK. Inks can print a very broad range of colors, but they can't print every color, right? So if you have a Pantone book or whatever with all the color swatches in there, you're going to say, well, I can hit a lot of these, but I can't hit all of them. So you want to find out, can I even hit the color that they want? And they might tell you the Pantone number that they want, or whatever. They might tell you exactly the color that they're looking for. It'll be in the file, of course, but you want the press and the file. The press doesn't print exactly what the file says. I mean, it follows the instruction, but it doesn't always look exactly correct. There's a little play to it, and that's where the operator skill comes in handy. So if a customer wants you to hit an exact Pantone number or exact color, and you have to match it to your Pantone colors, you have to match it to, or whatever color it is, you're going to match it. So you will print your first sheet or whatever, a proof, and you will look at it and compare it to the color you're trying to match. And then you can go into the job settings or the queue settings for the job, and you can edit the CMYK value sliders. You can, add a little cyan, subtract a little yellow or whatever. You can go through that process. You have to eyeball it. You're looking at it. Say, I think it needs a more cyan, you add more cyan, and then you print it again. And it's trial and error. Now you're just looking at a new sheet and you say, it's a little bit closer, but it's still not there. And then you go back and you keep trying until you get the color you want. And that's a bit of a tedious process. But if you're only trying to hit one color and you just want to, if it's really maybe a couple of different colors, but not a whole image of a blend of colors, there's only a few colors that you're trying to hit exactly, then I would recommend not doing that and using the other feature on Xerox FreeFlow, which is called, I think it's Spot Color Editor. So I'm talking about FreeFlow. There are other softwares available for the DFE, but I think they all have similar tools. But in any case, Spot Color Editor for FreeFlow is you pick the color you're trying to match, and it'll print a test sheet of that color plus a bunch of range of colors near it, and you select the color one of the colors on there that is closest to your color, and then you can run it again if you have to get even more fine-tuned. But that's a really handy feature that they added because it allows you to save time with trial and error. You're hitting it exactly, but what you're also doing is you're saving the default value for that color in the press. So anytime the press goes to run a job that contains that color in the job, then it'll print your newly saved value. So it prints your newly saved value, and now you're good forever, right? No, not forever. You're good for a while, but the press will drift, a little bit over time. The more blending involved in creating a color, the more likely it's going to drift, right? I mean, if it's pure cyan and nothing else, you probably won't have a problem at all, or very slight problem. But the more it has to blend, the more obvious the color density shifts become once it is blended to a new color. Okay, so that's a color matching that you may have to do. The other type of matching that you might have to do is a customer isn't super picky about hitting the exact Pantone color. They don't care about that, but what they care about is consistency with their order. So what happens is a customer will come and say, I want 500 copies of this book. You print the book, everybody's happy, the customer's happy, yay, looks pretty, looks great. In fact, they liked it so much that a few months down the road, they come back and say, we want more copies. We want 500 more, right? And you say, well, that's good for business, right? They're coming back. I guess they liked it, right? But this time you print it, you give them the same thing, and they say, why does the color look different than last time? Right? So this is a common problem that happens that's actually kind of tricky, because the customer will say, I want it to be the same as before, and you say, well, you didn't specify exact color matching, right? That was an option when you ordered this, and you never said the color had to be the same. And they said, yeah, but I expect it to be the same as the last time I printed it, right? Because now it looks stupid. I have a bunch of books on my bookshelf, and some of them have a lighter shade of blue than the other ones. And people say, well, why are those ones look different? Are they a different edition? No, they're not a different edition. They're the same book. Well, why do they look different? Exactly, right? It looks stupid. So, in that case, I think it really should be on the responsibility of the print company to maintain consistency. There are some cases where the customer really doesn't care at all, but in those cases, yeah, it does make total sense to me that you would want the same color match. Not necessarily a Pantone color match, but a color match to the previously printed product. And that can be a challenge. That actually can be harder than a Pantone match, because it may have just too many colors there. There may be 10 or 15 different colors on one image, or even more. And you can't sit there and match every single one. And the last time you printed it, you didn't do a Pantone match. You didn't edit any spot color, so you don't even know what it was last time. You have to start from scratch now. Now it's to do a thing that you've already printed before. It's actually more work. It's actually more work because you want it to match the one before. So in those instances, you want to save a copy of everything you've printed for every customer that has ordered anything. And that sounds tedious, but it's really important, right? The operator should not be responsible for that, but somebody along the line, whether it's a manager, supervisor, account rep, manager, somebody stores the purchase orders, sales order, whatever, all the financial agreements, what was ordered, everything into a folder somewhere, into a file somewhere. You want a copy, you want a hard copy, maybe 2 or 3 copies to be safe. And actually it would be better to have a copy of the original proof of the job, and then a copy of the printed job, or excuse me, of the finished job. So when I print a sheet, the job's not complete. It's not a book yet. It's just pages. So you want to save a copy of the pages before they get cut down or whatever else happens. And then you want to save the hard copy. So one of them is going to be color matching, but you may also want to see everything else so you don't forget what it looked like. That is going to save a lot of headaches and mistakes. And if the customer doesn't want you to have, for security reasons, they don't want you to hold on to any printed product, then you have to request from the customer. If they want an exact match the second time around, say, well, we're going to need an old copy to compare to, because you can't go by looking at a computer screen. Say, well, it looks kind of like it. It's a paper versus a monitor. It's not a very good way to compare. So, okay. Color matching is a tedious thing for an operator. It's much easier. The operator has a lot of things to be aware of, and to add color matching is extra tediousness. But it is an important part of printing. So, sometimes you need it, sometimes you don't. It depends on what you're printing, what the customer wants. But close enough is good enough in color matching. I know that sounds like a horrible thing to say, but you want to get as close as possible. And there are times when it's right there, but it's not exact. It's fine. Send it. Send it. Some colors you cannot match. If you have a 5th color option on your press, you can add an R, a G, or a B, and that'll give you a broader range of colors that you can match, but still not every color. So it's the same problem. You're going to get as close as you can get and then go with that. I'm not saying to rush through it. I'm saying get it as close as you can get. But you don't want to be spending all day saying, I think, it's got to be exact, and it doesn't exact. The thing is, getting a customer to approve it is more important. Because from person to person, you may not even see the same thing. Right? If I match a color, somebody else says it looks more orange. You ever have that problem where you're looking at something orange or red or something? People say that looks orange to me. That looks red to me, right? And that's just a normal conversation. Well, in the world of printing, when you have to get it, really fine-tuned all the way down to the exact color, you're still going to have people that say, well, it looks different to me. So, it is not an exact science in those cases, and you have to go by, unless you have some kind of tool, some kind of scanning device that will tell you if it's an exact match. Then you're going by eye and you're just getting it as close as possible. Okay. I'm going to sit down. Oh my God. Okay. Probably should have brought my water. Dang. The other thing with fifth color option, my opinion on the fifth color option, it does make a little more maintenance. It's more work, more things to keep track of for an operator. It's more inventory, a little bit more inventory. You got developer and toner. I don't know what the Xerox contract agreements look like for the fifth color. You may have to pay for the extra color out of pocket, or they might give you some. They might give you a startup, but ultimately you have to pay for it. Something like that. That would be my guess, but I'm not sure. I know there's RGB, there's silver and gold and clear as well. Clear has a kind of a different effect. It has like a interesting gloss type effect to the page. And then there's also the option to order a custom color, which for Xerox, if you need an exact color match, especially in the case where CMYK or plus RG or B does not hit your color, but you need that color. So, a common example would be a customer that has a logo. They say, well, our logo is this exact color, Pantone color, whatever. They say, we want that special purple, whatever. We want that special color. And you say, well, we can't actually print that with this press, right? It doesn't hit that color. No matter how you mix the colors, it doesn't hit it. But we could order a custom color from Xerox and have them create developer for this press of that exact color, and then it'll always be correct. There will be no rigorous color matching process. It'll be great all the time. That is an option, although most people do not go with that because of the cost, because it gets really expensive. It gets really expensive, and if you have one color, are you going to keep doing different custom colors for different customers? Like how long or how many colors can you possibly store toner and developer for? I mean, there's so many possibilities for colors, so it becomes sort of prohibitively unfeasible at that point, but it's an option. It's an option. My opinion on whether or not you should buy a fifth color option if you're buying a new press, if you're buying an Igen, whether or not to get the fifth color option. My opinion is, what are you printing? If you believe that you're going to need that broad range of colors, if you believe that you're going to have customers that want exact colors, including the RGBs, or if you're doing specialty printing where you have fancy designs with gold and silver and stuff, yes, then get it. But if you're just doing your basic printing with nothing fancy, then you don't need it. My opinion is it does look better. Having more color blends in there actually looks much nicer. I like the look of adding RG&B to the CMYK because I'm used to CMYK, so I've seen all the colors and I'm bored, and then I see the RGB thrown in there and I go, oh, that's awesome. It's just something nice to look at, something different. So yeah, I like the ability to do more things on my press, but it all comes down to the nature of your business. Okay, so that's color matching. That is image quality. So how does this tie into maintenance, right? How does this tie into maintenance? I hinted at this in the other video, but you should keep a log for everything. You want a service call log, you want a maintenance log, and you want an image quality artifact log, right? Create your own log with, Microsoft Excel or something where you have, lines, categories, you got date. If it's an image quality artifact, so you have the date, you have the description of the image quality artifact, you have the steps you took to resolve the issue, and then you have what did resolve the issue, if you know. So this is going to help. You're not using the log for anything but yourself. You're using it so that you can refer back for similar problems when they come back around the next time. So it could be months, it can be years before you get a problem to recur. And you'll have forgotten. But at the same time, getting in the habit of creating a log, getting in the habit of describing what's happened is going to build your own skill. And that is the best way to learn. If I sit here and I make a video of every image quality artifact and I, circle it, and then I point to where in the machine this originated from, what caused this image quality artifact. I can do that, but there's such a broad range. There's so many image quality artifacts that are potentially possible, even well more than I've even seen, right? Even today, even after 10 years or ever 15 years of doing this, like once in a while, there'll still be something. It's like, whoa, what is that? Like, I've never seen that. Right. So I say keep a log because I didn't do that. And it would have been better if I did. I would have learned faster if I did. And you would have an example. So not only are you keeping a log, a written log, but you have a reference, right? So after, what resolved the issue, and then you can have a reference and say, IQA, image quality artifact number 125, and then you have a separate binder or folder or storage area with a hard copy of that image quality artifact. So whenever you have a problem, don't throw it into the recycle bin. When you're done, oh, I fixed it, throw it away. Save it. Put it in a folder, binder, filing cabinet, something, so that it's linked to your logbook. And if you have to come back and review, you say, oh, that's the problem I had before. And I think, in your mind, you say, I think it looked like this, but I don't remember exactly. Well, now you can go to your file cabinet, pull it out, and say, there it is. And, oh, that's what it was. Okay. So it's just, it's good record keeping. It makes you stronger as an operator. And you're going to learn image quality artifact troubleshooting is a big part of this job. And it's hard to teach. Some of these things, they look similar, right? If it's coming from the same source, it's going to have a similar look to it, right? Is it a band of a streak of whiteness? Is it a light colored line that's showing up? Is it a dark colored line? Is it a fuzzy line? Is it a crisp line? Is it just a deleted area that is, any shape? Is it a thumbprint shape? Is it like a snow artifact? Is it like somebody sprinkled little dots? Are there dots of color? Are there dots of deleted color? Right? I mean, these are the potential looks and feels. Is it gloss differential? A gloss differential would be the fuser oil. It doesn't come out very nice, right? The problem is in the fuser, right? Something wrong with the fuser. Probably RAM assembly maintenance is due. Probably the oil needs to be changed out. But it could be something else. But these are problems. You will save a copy of each problem that comes along, and you'll be able to refer back to it and learn on your own. You'll be building your skill of image quality artifact troubleshooting over time. And IQA troubleshooting is the most difficult part of this job. It's the same thing with Xerox service. So if you have Xerox service contract, which you almost certainly will, and you have an image quality artifact troubleshooting or image quality artifact, you do your troubleshooting process, you can't figure it out, you call Xerox, they're going to go through their troubleshooting process. And Xerox isn't necessarily super skilled at image quality artifact troubleshooting either, right? You will find the technicians, you can see the difference in a technician that has been doing this for years and years versus a technician that's newer, because it's the same learning curve as an operator. I've never seen this one before, right? And you have to go through the process of figuring out what is causing this, right? A lot of things can interfere with the process of printing. It's a big press. If you have a foreign object in there or something, it's going to get in the way. If you have something damaged, it's going to get in the way. Too much buildup of dust, toner, ozone, whatever, it's going to get in the way of what it's trying to do. And it'll appear a certain way. So you have a normal troubleshooting process. What does it look like? Is it happening every page? Is it happening every exact page, like every sixth page? Or is it happening intermittently? And intermittent problems can be more difficult to figure out, right? Because if it's every certain page, it's going to be something like the photoreceptor belt, right? It can hold several sheets on one length of the belt. So when it comes around the next time, the image quality artifact is going to show up at the same spot of the belt rotation. So these are all clues, right? You're trying to figure out what is the source of the problem. So you ask logical questioning. You don't understand exactly the full engineering of this press. It's too much for you, right? And that's the disadvantage you have. So you're not sure what an image quality artifact is going to look like for each thing. It's still going to be hard even for an engineer to know, because an engineer doesn't necessarily plan on all the possible interferences that can happen. So yeah. So what you want to do is keep a log and teach yourself as you go along, and you will learn a lot faster that way. You can circle, you can circle it if you want to, on the sheet. It's the same process. If you have to call in Xerox service to do the troubleshooting, leave hard copy. You can describe it to them on the phone, but ultimately they're going to want to look at it. So you leave hard copies of your problem. Explain, you can circle the artifact, and then they will start doing their process. And they can be difficult, especially an intermittent problem that only happens once in a while. That's a little bit trickier. There's a couple of tricks you could try. You can cheat the doors open. So typically the press only runs when the doors are closed, but you can cheat the interlock switch, which tells the press the door is closed. So you open the door and you can stick a key in there. And the Xerox has specially made interlock switch bypass keys or devices, or I don't know what the official term is called. We call them cheaters. You put them in, and it'll lock in there and just stay. The button will stay depressed, and that way you can see the paper as it travels through the paper path. And it might help you for some problems. Particularly if you're having jamming problems, that might help you. But if you're trying to figure out the source of the image quality artifact, and you're really not sure whether it's the xerographic area or it's during or after, or it's a fusing problem. If you're really torn, or it's xerographic and you're not sure where in the xerographic process, you can do a hard stop, which is somewhat frowned upon by Xerox because it is, I don't know, it's a little bit harsh on the press, but you have to do quite a bit of cleanup procedure to get it back. It's not really engineered to be able to endure that. It doesn't clean up well when you do hard stops, but you can help it along. It's not too bad. I still do it once in a while. So a hard stop would be is you're running regular production or test sheets or whatever, and in the middle, somewhere in the middle, you just pull the door open, and that'll jam it instantly. Everything will stop completely. And then you can open up the press, leave all the sheets where they are, and just inspect what's going on. You can inspect a pre-fused sheet that's already been transferred. You can inspect a post-fused sheet. Or even better, you can undock the PR belt and pull it out and actually visually inspect the PR belt while it still has image on it. And you can see if the artifact is showing up on the image on the belt, right? And that'll give you a clue. Oh, it's even before, right? It's coming from the developer housing, right? That'll tell you it's even before either the charge or the developer, right? If it's not on the PR belt, then it has to be before. So you know the order of things, and that's how you narrow it down. So that is troubleshooting. You can use on the PSIP, there is a help option menu. You can click on help. It brings up a browser with Xerox documentation. There's a section for image quality artifacts. You can go through those, read, certain types of artifacts. What direction is the artifact? Is it in the process direction or the cross process direction? What does it look like, type of thing. They have a few samples of possible image quality artifacts that will show up. It's not super helpful because some of these you'll never have, and others of these, and you will have a lot more than are shown up in this reference guide. But it's a starting point. It's something you can read over. It may help give you an idea. Narrowing it down, is it only one color? Is it all colors? Right? These are questions you want to ask. Is it a skewing? Is it a registration problem? Are you having skewing of your sheet? Right? There are, you want to troubleshoot these things. Okay, so maintenance. Let's go on to maintenance. To prevent these image quality artifacts, you're going to be doing regular maintenance intervals on the schedule. The schedule Xerox provides is a rough schedule. So each component of the press has its own lifespan. So you're going until it hits end of life, and then you're replacing it at that counter. So on the PSIP, there is a icon with a little wrench that you can click on, and that will bring up your HFSI inventory. You could also get it through diagnostics as well. But your HFSI inventory has all the components that you're responsible for replacing or cleaning, and it'll tell you the count intervals, so every number of impressions. Keep in mind that the impression counts are not necessarily the same impression counts that you might be printing. So when the Xerox keeps a tally of the impression counts, they're also counting the test patterns that are printed on the belt. But the customer, you, are not being charged for those numbers. You're only being charged for what you are printing. But those test pattern counts do count toward the shelf or toward the lifespan of these components. So if you see a number discrepancy, you say, why is this going by so many counts so fast? That's why. Every time it's printing on the belt, it's another count for the life of these products, of these components. Okay. So like I said in the last video, the operator is responsible for many of the components, replacing and maintaining many of the components. And Xerox service is responsible for other components. So your HFSI inventory, highly frequent serviceable items or something like that, is going to show what you are responsible for. And when the machine is logged into PSIP, there will be more items on the list, including the technician items. So that's how Xerox has divided it. When Xerox service comes in for a service call, they will also check their HFSI list, and they'll say, oh, something is due, right? Since I've been here the last time, something is now due that's on my list. And they will not only service your press for whatever issue you called them for, but they will also replace a part while they're there. So they're responsible for the RAM assembly maintenance, fuser web reassembly, donor roll, external heat rolls, pressure roll, those are all replaceable by Xerox only. System cleaning is also on their list. I'll talk about that in a second. And there's a bunch of filters, environmental filters in the back of the press that they're responsible for as well. You are responsible for your charge wires, dichromatrons, pin scorotrons, the grids, rebuilding them, the wire mods, fuser roll, PR belt. They're also responsible for the cleaner. I believe they're responsible for the cleaner housing, brushes, and flicker bars, although that's something I would do as well. So these every component has a lifespan that Xerox has done tests on and said that that's about the average lifespan for each component. So it's the same thing as a press environmental monitor. It's green. Green is good, right? Yellow is it's starting to get to the end of life, and red is beyond the count threshold. So it's considered end of life. Now you can get longer lifespan out of each component, and a skilled operator is going to be able to maximize the life output of each component. But red for me, what it means, I think it's more efficient when you do that PR belt change. When that has to be done, that's when you do everything else as well. So I will let things sit in the red until I need to change my PR belt, and then I do everything all at that time, because I've done it many different ways, and I think that is the most time efficient. And I think these components do last longer in general than their counts, but not always. Not always. Sometimes you may have to change something early, especially if you see a problem. The PR belt is the only thing, like I said, that I would consistently not hit the 1.2 million count that they have on it. 7 to 800,000. 800,000 is about right on average. But it depends on what you're printing. Everything depends on what you're printing. Some things are harder, some things are more taxing on the press, and that's going to reduce your lifespan. So if you replace an item, you go to your HFSI list and you'll reset the count. Every time you replace it, you'll reset the count and it'll go back to green. Okay. Let me take a breath. Let me get some water. Okay, so you have there's also an option that may or may not be enabled on your account, which is called the auto replenish feature. If you, or whatever, something like that, auto order or something. If you reset a count of one of the parts that needs to be reordered, it will automatically send it to Xerox system and they will automatically order the parts for you. Otherwise, you have to, in addition to resetting the count, you have to write down what you replaced. And you should be doing this already in your maintenance log. That's why I said keep different logs for different things. Write down what you're doing in your maintenance log. I replaced cyan wire mod, whatever. And you have reason. Why did I do that? Well, I had an image quality artifact, or the wire was snapped. I looked at it and I saw the wire was completely snapped. The wires can snap on the wire mods. They can also snap potentially on the dichorotron. Dichorotron wires can potentially snap. Typically, it happens after their end of life already. Eventually, they wear down and they lose their strength. If they're improperly seated, improperly installed, there could be more tension on the wire, and that can cause it to snap early. So, doing the maintenance procedures properly, handling, inspecting, all those things are going to prevent those kind of problems. It's not super rare. Xerox does recommend that you wear some sort of safety goggles anytime you're working in the xerographic area, because something like the wire snapping, if it does snap while you're handling it, it's made of glass and could potentially, if it hits you in the eye, it's not going to be a fun day for you. Um, there's also just contaminants and stuff that you're breathing in. It's not really good. I never did, but I would say yes. If you don't have glasses, then wear goggles. If you have extra COVID masks lying around, this would be a good use for them. Breathing in that toner and stuff, it does. I mean, they say it's generally safe, but I don't know that. It's made of plastic, so I would say probably not that safe. But to be on the safe side, wear a mask when doing maintenance. I never did, but I've done it long enough to know that yes, when you're sneezing and you're blowing your nose with magenta coming out, you go, yeah, it's getting in my system, right? So I would recommend mask and safety goggles as well anytime you're doing maintenance. Okay, so yeah, you got your maintenance logbook, your HFSI list. You're resetting your counts. Everybody's happy. Um, if you have to order parts, you can do that. You'll have a relationship with Xerox, so you'll know what the agreement is. If you want to order them separately or you want to order them, the service technicians can order stuff as well. So you might have a list of parts that you replace. The next time they come in, they'll place an order. You already have an inventory of every part. You have a parts cabinet that comes with your press, and you're trying to maintain that inventory. So you should have a spare of everything and multiple spares in some cases. Um, so when you replace something, there should always be something there, but you should also order it so it gets replenished in the coming week or so. In the next week or so, it should come in. Um, yeah. System cleaning. Let me talk about system cleaning. This is an oft overlooked aspect of maintaining this press. It's something that's often skipped by both operators and Xerox technicians. It's a pain in the ass, kind of. It's this refers to cleaning all the rollers, idlers, belts, surfaces of the press throughout the paper path. So there's a whole bunch of belts, there's a whole bunch of rollers in this press as the paper is traveling, right? It's a big press. So and potentially the sensors as well you can clean. So what happens is paper travels through the press. It's got oil on it. It's got dry ink on it, toner on it. It's got paper dust, right? And that oil, ink, dust combined um, will build up on the rollers and the belts and the surfaces of the press over time. A little bit, just a little bit rubs off a little bit over time and it builds up. You're running a lot of sheets through this press. So the paper, especially because the papers are that a duplex, they're going around twice. So they're dragging all that oil paper dust around the press and it builds up. So the rollers get caked on with all this gunk and stuff, and you never really clean them. The rollers actually last a very long time, and they will run with gunk on them. They will run for a very long time. But Xerox sets a count of system cleaning. I think it's 2 million, something like that. They recommend going through the press and cleaning all the rollers and belts and stuff. And a lot of times you say, I don't need to do that. It's running fine, right? Saying even the technicians would say it's not really that important. But I've run it long enough to know that I would do it. I do it, and there is a difference. I do it at about 5 million. I don't do it at 2 million. Every maybe it depends how much I'm running, but a couple of times a year, maybe 2, 3 times a year, I will stop to do system cleaning, and it takes 45 minutes to an hour or something like that, and to really do a good job. So that is technician only maintenance, but it's something I would definitely train a good operator to. I would train an operator to know in order to get to that next level, because it's your press. I mean, ultimately, you're responsible for operating this press. So the more you know, the better off you are. And a neglect of system cleaning can lead to paper jams. And it could also lead to registration issues if we're talking about area 1 into area 2. You can have registration issues, and you don't want that. Static can also build up. So you can break all of this by cleaning on a regular interval all the rollers, idlers, belts, whatever. So Xerox will never recommend that you do this, but it's the best way to do it. Sort of like a hard stop. It's frowned upon. It's it's potentially dangerous, so you have to be very careful. Don't have anybody interrupting you when you're doing system cleaning. Just focus on what you're doing. Do system cleaning at a good stopping point when you have no other jobs pending, because you're going to take an hour and just work on it and get it to a good health. It's not really going to affect your image quality, so that's why people don't think it's that important, but it affects the performance of the paper running through the paper path. And the longer you neglect it, the harder it is to clean. Yeah, I'll probably create a separate video for system cleaning, but it's something you're going to want to go through and clean all the rollers, and I like to do it while the rollers are running. It's just easier to clean. There's a lot of rollers, so it takes time. You're going to be on your hands and knees throughout the press trying to get to all these spots. Some of them are hard to get to. It's not that fun, But once everything is clean, you can run cleanup sheets through the press, blank sheets through the press, make sure everything's good. You can watch it run, The stacker, for instance, the stacker belts need to be cleaned as well. That will help your stacking. I say 5 million, but at some point, months into printing, after several months of printing, I stop and do system cleaning. I think it's important. Plus, you're getting all that built up crap out of there, paper dust out of there. You can clean the surfaces. You can vacuum as well. There's buildup on the bottom. Vacuum this stuff. It's not super recommended, but it's all long-term health of your press. How long you want this press to be operating for, because the more years you're running this press, you'll start having weirder and weirder problems because, stuff is building up in the press and not being cleaned out. Okay, so that's system cleaning. I could make a procedure for that. I could make a interview. That's that decurler. That there's a decurler roller that needs to be cleaned. That is considered technician only maintenance. But again, that's something that I would want the operator to know how to do. How to remove the decurler assembly and clean that blue decurler roller, because that does build up fairly quickly. A couple of million, 3 million, something like that. That does build up. The roller itself should last a long time, but it gets dirty and it affects its performance when it's dirty. So keeping that clean is important. Okay, it's getting dark. It's getting dark. I've been talking for that long. Ooh, very bright. What else is there? As I mentioned in previous videos, you'll be using diagnostics. To run diagnostics procedures like a PR belt capture and a zero graphics setup. I will make videos for that as part of PR belt changing maintenance, how to change the PR belt. Obviously, it would help if I could visually show you what a PR belt looks like and what I'm doing to change the PR belt, but that's going to be impossible right now. But I will tell you exactly how to do it, and I will tell you the right information, which you may or may not get from anyone else, because that's the way it is right now. Okay. Yep. Diagnostics, you'll be using color maintenance tool we talked about. What do you do when you first get to your shift? This is important. So when you first come to your shift, this will vary based on whether or not you're the only operator. So if you're the only one that runs this press, then you know where you left off the day before. if you work for a company that runs multiple shifts, 2, 3 shifts, then you're coming in, somebody else had just run it for 8 hours or longer, right? Somebody else had been running this press for a while. So things are different. You can't just pick up where you left off. You have to know where they left off. So communication between operators becomes valuable. If you're using these logging mechanisms that I'm talking about, then the other operators should be using them as well. And you can use that information to give you an idea for the health of the press, because a lot can change in 8 hours time, and you're not there to see it. You're not there to see the changes. During your shift, you'll be observing the image quality at the beginning of your shift. You'll be observing it at the end of your shift, so you know where the press is relatively well. But if somebody else was running it, they had image quality problems, it may carry into your shift, and you want to know what's going on. So you should know what the other operator has done maintenance-wise. You should be able to look this information up. You can use the administration tab to gather more information. Last 25 print engine faults, or primary faults, I think it's called. You got your last 200 function only faults, log only faults, 100 log only faults. Right, those are the information you're looking at. Function only has the best information, the most useful information. Log only means the press didn't stop, it continued running, but it detected something was off measurement, and that may give you some information. But as far as cleaning goes, Xerox recommends you clean all the dichromatrons every 8 hours, and you run color maintenance every 8 hours, every shift. I run color maintenance every day. I think every day is fine. Every shift is a little bit overkill, but it's not going to hurt if you do. Certainly not going to hurt if you do. Just more paper wasted, a little bit of time. It's not a lot of time. It's not a lot of paper. But I think once a day is sufficient. Cleaning the dichromatrons. So for cleaning that stuff, you'll be taking a brush. You remove the dichromatron. You brush it off. You brush off the grid if it has one. The pin scoretrons have their own brush on the inside that will help clean the grid. You just pull back and forth. There is a grid cleaning tool that exists in your toolbox that comes with your press. You can insert on both sides of the grid while it's still installed, and just go back and forth with the brush, and it'll help break up the material that's on there. Personally, I think this cleaning is overkill, and it was more essential on the Igen4. If you're having a lot of buildup on there, then that's a problem that should be investigated with the developer housing, probably, or something going on with development on the PR belt. But in terms of brushing off the dichromatrons, I don't do it on Xerox count. Xerox has it at 50,000 and 100,000. They have HFSI list to clean the dichromatrons, clean the dichro wires and stuff, grids, whatever. at a 50,000 interval. I think that's overkill. Again, I clean it whenever I go in there. I'll just clean things, but I don't do it necessarily every shift. But once a day is fine. But it really depends on the schedule, right? It depends on how much I'm running today, how many shifts are operating today. Did another shift already clean? If they cleaned it, I'm not cleaning it, because it's not that image quality critical. Um, in my experience, it's a little bit overkill, and you do things when you need. Ideally, you do things when you need to do them. You don't do them just because, right? I'm trying to be as time efficient as possible. I don't like the HFSI list telling me that I have to clean every 50,000. That annoys me. So I go into the MVMs and I change the default setting for those to 250,000, so it doesn't tell me, all the time to reset the, because I don't want to have to reset the count. So I just make the count higher. But that's my personal preference. But cleaning is pretty easy. You're just brushing it off. I don't even use the cleaning tool, the grid cleaning tool. I just brush everything. I just brush it, and that's sufficient. The CPUC is doing my job for me. The CPUC is maintaining that color density, and it's doing a good job, and I'm happy. And I'm keeping my eye on everything. I'm always inspecting to make sure the health of the press is where I want it to be. That's the key right there. The cleaning, is sort of, it's something you're trying to prevent the buildup in there. Yes, if there's too much buildup, it starts becoming a problem. But 50,000 is overkill in my opinion. The transfer DTAC will build up with paper dust. I will clear those out. The stab blade builds up with developer material. That I'm just going to wipe off gently with my lint-free cloth. So you're going to be using these lint-free cloths very frequently. They also have Q-tip-like things for cleaning sensors, but the lint-free cloth is going to be your best friend. The lint-free prevents any extra buildup that you would get from a rag or something else. You don't want extra dust sticking in the machine. The lint-free, everything will attract to the cloth, and once the cloth is completely dirty, you can throw it out and use a new one. So that's what you'll be using to clean anything in this press, pretty much. You can apply alcohol and stuff, or some other cleaner, potentially anti-static fluid, plate and glass lens cleaner. You can apply these things, potentially for the surfaces of the press. But a lot of times the cloth will just be dry. ETAC sensors, mob sensors, I use a dry cloth. I don't put anything on it. I used to put things on. I've tried different ways, and to me, dry is the best way. Um, and cleaning a belt or cleaning a roller, you're using that, right? You can have some alcohol on there. Um, the stab blade, it's dry. Everything's dry. I'm wiping inboard to outboard. All I'm doing is preventing a buildup, but I'm not doing it every day. I'm doing it whenever I have to go in the xerographic area. If I have to do something in there, that's a good time to clean. While I'm here, let's clean it. You can also use the brush on the stab blade and just brush off the material. It's not super recommended because the material still stays kind of in the press. At least if you're putting it on the cloth, you're attracting it out of the press. But I'm just trying to prevent the image quality problems that can happen as a result of too much buildup. But, if you clean the stab blade and you're overly aggressive with your cleaning, you can damage the stab blade. And now that's causing an image quality problem. That's causing a jam or transfer problem. I don't want that. I don't want that. So, there's that balance between being delicate with the press and keeping it clean. You're just essentially you're trying to prevent too much buildup, but you don't have to keep it super clean. It's never going to be super clean. When you put a new component in the press, that's as clean as it's going to be, but it doesn't stay that way forever. You help it along throughout the life of each component, but super clean is not always possible or even necessary. So, um, yeah, lint free rag. So, what I'm typically doing when Xerox is going to say to do these things, clean the die cores and stuff. Typically, when I walk into a shift, what I inspect is the fuser roll first. I want to see the health of the fuser area more so than the die cores. I don't really care about the buildup on the die cores, especially if I'm pretty sure one of the other shifts has already cleaned. Then I don't. It's not time wise. It's not that critical for me. If I have to go in there, I'm cleaning. But if I'm not, then I don't need to. But the fuser roll, yes, the fuser roll, the pressure roll. Okay, so in the fuser roll, you have the stripper finger bar on the pressure roll. The pressure roll itself builds up with gunk, and the stripper finger bar helps to clean that, but it's not perfect. It doesn't perfectly clean it. So you take your cloth and remove the gunk from the stripper fingers, and then I'm cleaning inboard to outboard with a pressure roll as I'm manually rotating it nice and slow until I get all the way around. And now I've cleaned the pressure roll. That I do daily, and I do it daily because it just gets hard to clean if I neglect it for several days and then try to clean it. It builds up on there and it gets hard to remove. And I don't want to use chemicals if I don't have to. I want to do it dry. So I just do that every day as a habit. And while I'm in the fuser roll, the thermistor pads that are touching the fuser roll, um, they build up with gunk as well, and they need to be clean. If they get too dirty, they get caked on, and then they get hard or even impossible to clean. And if you try to if you try too hard, you damage the thermistor pad, and then it fails. And that's considered technician only maintenance, replacing those. So they're easy to damage. You have to be very gentle with these things. But if you clean them daily, just gently with a dry cloth, just wipe off the material, it won't build up on there. And it won't build up to a point where it prohibits the functioning. It inhibits the functioning. So that's what I care about. I care about the stripper finger bar, the pressure roll, and the thermistor pads of the fuser roll. And that's it. I don't clean the fuser roll. I never clean the fuser roll unless I have dried up toner stuck on there. The fuser roll has its own process for cleaning. It has its own process for distributing oil. And I make sure that those are working correctly. I'm not usually helping it unless I've had a jam in the fuser and it's stuck to the fuser roll and now there's stuff on there. Then it's going to struggle with its self cleaning process. So, in order to clean the fuser roll, I'm just using fuser oil, not using alcohol, not using any chemical. You can clean it dry, but you want it to have oil on there, so you can use a little bit of fuser oil to help keep it lubricated while you're cleaning it, and kind of evenly distribute that oil as you're rotating it. But it'll keep adding its own oil. So and the first sheet that runs through will wipe off a lot of the excess. So it works out. Okay, I think that we're getting right toward the end here of operator maintenance. The actual procedures have to be talked about individually. But the overall sort of concepts and ideas behind operator maintenance, what kinds of things you're going to be dealing with, responsible for. Um, it's a skill that you're building. It's a skill that you're building in time, and after a year, after a couple of years, you'll start feeling more confident with your abilities. Um, I've seen this before. I know what to do for that. I'm going to do it. And look, I did it, and the problem resolved within 5 to 10 minutes instead of banging my head trying to troubleshoot. I can't figure it out. Time's going by. I'm wasting paper. I'm wasting, I have to call Xerox and it takes them hours to get here. Days go by. That's a lot of downtime potentially. And the smarter of an operator you are, the more downtime you're going to be decreasing. You don't have downtime. We have uptime. Nothing but uptime here. Nothing but uptime. So, yeah. So I'm cleaning the fuser roll and pretty much nothing else. Visually inspecting everything, of course, the surfaces, make sure there's nothing out of the ordinary. You can clean the metal surfaces with alcohol. They do build up eventually as well, but that's part of system cleaning. You can clean the fuser roll surfaces. Um, it's part of system cleaning. Take the time to do it once in a while. It'll make a difference. Cleaning a sensor, right? Not that common. Once in a while, you can clean a sensor. You can use alcohol, just a little bit, just a drop of alcohol, and the Q-tip pad type things that Xerox has. Just kind of gently rub it on there. Clean the lens, clean the reflector. Let's see. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So I'm doing the fuser roll maintenance. I do a quick cleaning there, inspection, make sure everything looks right. You can check other things if you want. I mean, as you're learning, you probably want to inspect more. So I know exactly what to look for now. But when you're first learning, you don't know these things. So you can take the time to visually inspect the fuser roll, visually inspect the fuser web, take it out, look at it. Has it been cleaning? Is it rotating correctly? Everything good? Is the X roll underneath the fuser web? Is it clean? Does that mean that the web is doing its job? right? Things that you know, be aware of. You don't have to do this. It's just as you have image quality artifact problems, you will start learning what could go wrong, and you will inspect better. You will learn to look for these things before they go wrong. But in terms of preventative maintenance, I don't really do a whole lot, right? I do those simple things. I run my color maintenance procedure, and then I get right into printing. And sometimes I don't do that. If I come into a shift, somebody's already been running, or they're in the middle of printing currently. If they're in the middle of printing currently, I just keep on printing. And as soon as I get to a stopping point, then I might clean out the fuser roll. I might run colored maintenance, maybe, right? If they already ran it, then I won't run it. I'm not changing anything. It's only when I have a moment of extra time and I have to make changes. Like sometimes you'll have to change the fuser roll out because the print job you needs, a larger width. I need to print on 14-inch paper, but the fuser roll in here is worn down. It can't handle the 14-inch paper. I need a fresher fuser roll. I need one with even wear on it. So I'm gonna have to swap out the fuser roll and put a different one in. And that's a 10 to 15 minute process because it has to heat up again. So while it's heating up or while I'm doing the swap, I could be doing a little bit of maintenance procedures while in the meantime. Once you close the fuser door, it starts heating up. So you could potentially clean your die cores or whatever in the xerographic area at that time, if you so choose. I prefer cleaning them before I do color maintenance, because I don't want to affect image quality by going in the press. And if I do affect image quality, then I want to recalibrate just as a good practice habit. When I do the PR belt changes, I'm doing the most amount of maintenance. Any HFSIs that are red are going to go. Now I'm changing all of them. Now I'm cleaning everything. And I'm cleaning it well. I'm cleaning it thoroughly. I want everything to be correct. I'll take about an hour to do a PR belt change, even at my fast experience, because I can do it a lot faster. I can do it a lot faster, but I'm doing everything at that time typically. And the diagnostic procedures take time, anyways. And then running sheets of the press, recalibrating, it takes some time, but I expect I expect an hour of downtime if I have to do PR belt changes because I'm doing a full maintenance. I'm cleaning everything. But I am only doing them every 800K, so I don't have much downtime. That's my goal. I don't have much downtime other than that. Fuser roll changes, yes, 10 to 15 minutes. Um, how long it takes to warm up depends on the press itself, the hardware, the lamp that is in the fuser roll. The lamp can actually get pretty. pretty bad over time, and it actually can warm up slower when it's starting to reach end of life. I don't think Xerox has um, an interval on the heat rods on the lamps of the fuser rolls. I don't think there's a life interval. Some of these they have like maxed out at 999 million or something. They have it maxed out, so there is no actual interval. Just replace when it has to be replaced. Damaged, not functioning. The lamps can be replaced, but really with a lamp, you're just trying not to break it. They are fragile and they have to be handled with care. But typically, the end of life happens when it's broken. You've seen one get really dirty and gross after a very long period of time. It can get inefficient. It can be slower to warm up. I've seen that. Um, but I don't think I've ever seen it fail without breaking. So they last a long time. A lot of these things do last a long time, but they are delicate. So your handling is everything. Handling is everything. Handling is everything. Handling is everything. I could say that over and over again. Handling the paper, handling the components of the press is everything. That's part of your skill, is learning how hard do I handle things. Um, you want to be delicate in many cases. Delicate but hard enough to make sure everything latches correctly and visually inspect things that need to be seated a certain way. And from there, you're good. Okay. I think I am satisfied. Never really sure, right? There's always something, right? It's always something that's probably useful, but I'm not recalling at the moment. But you're going to build your skill in time, so I don't worry about that. Um, it's just keep good logs, pay attention, try to be the best you can be, try to improve your time efficiency. Always work on self improvement, continuous improvement um, of your responsibilities, and you'll be a good operator after a few years. Okay, so that is operator maintenance, press maintenance / image quality. Um, and from here, the only thing left to do is to show you individual operator maintenance procedures. And in this case, I'll just be describing them to you. Um, and that is all you need to know. Everything else you will learn on the fly. And you will experiment. You will find things. You will find things that might be useful to you. Um, Maybe there's other diagnostics procedures that I don't talk about that you might use. Um, some things you just don't need, and some things you may like to use. There may be test patterns you like to run. There may be something different that you like that I would never even considered. So, um, but I'm giving you the best of 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 the best. But I did it under 2 hours this time, so that's pretty good. Look at that. Look at that. Okay, we're going with that. I'll see you next time for maintenance procedures, individual procedures, and now you're a certified hygiene operator. Carry on to the great world of Xerox, and may the force be with you and all the other stuff. And what is that?